man has pleaded guilty to 2 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon following a shooting at a pumpkin patch last year. Many of us remember the chaotic scene at the Nederland Apostolic Church in October of 2023. Authorities say Jeremy Pitman tried to forcefully abduct his wife. When bystanders tried to stop him, Pitman pulled out a gun, and as they struggled to get the gun, 3 shots were fired. Pitman faces up to 20 years in prison. The judge will decide his sentence later.
You know, I'm going to say, I remember reading something just the other day, and I'm sure it was in this case, but I don't see your sentencing. Oh. I don't see it.
It's an easy read. Take about a minute. Because it's not any good, because it's short.
So 3 cases are called 23 CR 1859, 1860, and 24 CR 774, the state of Texas versus Jeremy Lane Pitman. That's you.
That's me.
With Mr. Kelly, your attorney and the state's attorney. Earlier, you pleaded guilty to there's nothing on the front of this file. Did he plead to the attempted aggravated kidnapping?
No.
Or not?
No,
No, that was
to be
not. That's going to be dismissed as
Correct.
part of this agreement. All right, that's set aside. Then we've got 1860 aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, 2nd degree felony, and another 2nd degree felony aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Looks like 2 different people were victimized in this in these 2 indictments. And so he is looking at 2nd degree felonies in each of these cases, no less than 2 nor more than 20 years confinement in prison. The agreement that has been reached by the parties is a cap of 10 years imprisonment. So in each case, so it looks like he could be placed no less than 2 nor more than 10 years confinement in prison on each of these cases. He could be placed on deferred or unadjudicated probation in each of these cases. It looks like regular probation is out the window, right? Because of a deadly weapon that's used, namely a firearm. So those are the 2 options here. I have reviewed and made some points here on the pre-sentence report that has been received. Have the parties received it, reviewed it? Any corrections or changes to it? State?
Not from the state.
Defense.
No corrections or objections from us, Chuck.
Let me see your. I
got a note this morning that it had been rejected by the clerk's office, but Mr. Laird had told me that he'd sent a copy of it. So. I have received a copy, Judge, and read it. So
I thought I had seen, but this isn't the first time you filed a sentencing memorandum. Correct?
In this case, it is.
Yeah, in cases you do it.
Yes.
And I wish you'd write some more legal articles because I thought you'd do a good job on this. We could use more thoughts in print.
Thank you, Judge.
Today is, let's jump on the probation success, and great because they have wonderful results, and I'm glad others recognize that. How long have you been in jail now, sir?
A year. I'm sorry, I can't answer the judge.
Wow, what are the odds of that?
I was going to mention to the court, it's not lost on us, Judge. The court notices the dates of the offense as well as today.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, the pre-sentence report again has been reviewed by the court, and parties, again, the agreement that's been reached by the parties is whatever sentence shall exceed a cap of 10 years in prison in each case. So we've got confinement and deferred or unadjudicated probation as options here. Okay, state, you may go first and then defense, and then you can come back with a rebuttal.
Judge, these are two separate instances. You've got one the night before involving his wife, and then you've got one the next day with a different victim, but it also involves his wife at the time. It seems when I look through these reports that, and through some of these explanations of medications and different things that the defendant was taking could have caused some of this, through the sentencing memorandum, thinking that maybe that it's a combination of the medical and I just don't see that because of the fact that he's been taking these medications for such a long time and doesn't report any prior history other than years ago trying suicide, but he's never done anything like this. My thought process in looking at all this is that this man has a gun, and that gun was used not only against his wife to hold her captive in a room for overnight and also threatening her with that firearm, but the next day when she's out just in a public place at a church, pumpkin patch where people are, he shows up and tries to grab her by the scruff of the neck to make her come with him because she doesn't want to go. And when somebody tries to intervene, this man sticks a gun to his head. This is not doesn't sound like a psychotic episode where he's imagining that there's somebody trying to get his wife. Doesn't say he's talking like he doesn't understand what's going on. Matter of fact, when he shows up, he walks up to his wife and says, "Come on." She says no. He grabs her by the scruff of the neck. And when somebody else tries to intervene, then he goes off on him and puts a gun to his head. While they're struggling over the gun, it goes off not once, like it's an accident, but goes off 3 times, which says that he's trying to pull the trigger 3 times to get this man and kill him so that he can get to his wife. There's other people out there. This is just such a scary situation that this man's even walking the streets. I mean, you don't know where he's going to go off next, and it's not because of medication. I see where he's had 2 trips to rehab, even though he's supposed to be on all these medications. I think he's adding to his medications by using something else, because the night before with his wife, she was telling the police that he was intoxicated. That day, there was no sign of anything other than he was just angry with a gun. It seems that we can't send him to safety because he's already been to 2 treatments, 3 months each in 2 different hospitals.
Were you intoxicated that night? All right. Well, the odd thing is, according to you, you had alcohol less than 2022, which would have been which would have been a year before that. That's what you told the probation office.
Yeah, I was trying to get dates together, and I believe putting on the slide.
May I address that, Your Honor?
You're going to have full chance.
I know.
Go ahead.
So his wife's not safe in her home. The public's not safe with him out with a gun. I know his wife says that she believes it was a medication that did it, but I think it was more than the medication. It's a combination, and he won't stop using. He's been to rehab twice. And in order for us to do something, we have to protect not only his family, but protect the public and protect himself. If he's going to go around doing these things and putting people in danger, then we would recommend the 10 years.
Go ahead.
Judge, I don't have any space to disagree with Mr. Laird's recitation of the facts. They're accurate, and they're accurate as they are laid out on page 1 of the precinct report. One of the things that Jeremy and I discussed extensively over the course of the last several months, and also since the time he pled and leading up to the pre-sentence interview I don't know if the word is lucky or fortunate or grace or whatever that this wasn't worse.
Could have been, yeah.
We shouldn't say we. I think he again. Maybe grace is the right word. I haven't been to that pumpkin patch, but I've been to a few, and as we mentioned a moment ago, it has not been lost on us that the sentencing date is the 1-year anniversary here. So those folks have not only lived those events one time, they've done it, I would imagine, over the course of the last year. I suppose where I would differ is even if the court sentences Jeremy to a period of confinement, he is going to get out. I mean, I know that's obvious. I know Mr. Laird knows that too, but I think the reason that that's important is he has been in custody for a year, and some of the mental health issues are not his fault. Some of them are exacerbated by his own doing. The alcohol abuse is.
We then talked about cocaine daily use,
right,
from the age of 20 daily until from the time he was 20 until it says 2022. I mean, that's a long time. The man's 50 years old. So that's almost 30 years of daily cocaine use, according to you.
What stood out, just because I expected it to be the opposite, was the TRAS screening based upon the facts of the case. I suppose I didn't even consider how it would come back. I might have guessed that it would come back high, but the fact that it came back low in conjunction with what the facts of the case are and his background was at least somewhat of a surprise. And also, I think it's at least a little bit of an indicator that he would be successful on probation if he did what the court's going to demand, not require, but demand. And part of that is going to be, you're done drinking and you're done with all this other stuff. Otherwise, this is going to be a complete failure. I think it's worth mentioning and hearing too that there's just, I don't want to make any effort to minimize what the facts of the case are. They are what they are. And they're egregious, but we are asking for the court to put some demands on him to address at least the underlying issues that are connected here. I think that he would be successful, Judge. So there's two paths. He can continue in confinement where he's been for a year, or we can put him under a program that's going to force him, I can still the court's own term, to fix this mess.
Okay.
And that's what it is, Judge.
Anything else?
Just pointing out that Texas risk assessment was just a screening. It wasn't the full TRAS. It's a screening process, but Judge, I still just worry about the safety of the public and safety of his family.
Oh, anything else you'd like to say, sir?
Well, just sort of
Go ahead.
I'm nervous, so bear with me. I'm sorry, and I know that rings real hollow. When a kid says I'm sorry if they spill a drink, I'm sorry I'm going to have to find a way to do my apology, make something happen, get with my wife, get with the church, do some work around there. I have a lot of doing to do. And I'll just leave it at that.
Oh.
I'll also say, sir, that I knew the day before that my medications were messing with me. The thing about psych meds is some bad side effects. And so you're waiting to see what's going to happen. And then, I could try to remember that pumpkin patch, I only had flashes.
Let me tell you what messes with you is 30 years of daily cocaine use. Don't blame that on your medication.
No, and that's not really how long it was either.
You said it.
Yeah, I did.
I'm really,
I wrote it on there.
yeah. So, all right, why don't you, instead of speaking as though you begin your sentence with once upon a time and make a fairy tale out of what you're about to say, you want to clear up anything else that are facts, because I'm going to rely on what I understand to be the facts. But you're blaming it on your psychological medicine when you have a long time cocaine use admission here. And then now you want to say, no, that's not true. If you want to say it's not true, fine. But it just begins to show that you can't tell the truth. You didn't have anything to lose by talking to the probation office by telling the truth, but you're saying that that wasn't right. That was incorrect. Is there anything else you want to change?
No, sir.
All right. In each of these cases, you have pleaded guilty voluntarily. You were mentally competent to do so. You understand and appreciate the consequences of pleading guilty. There's sufficient evidence supporting your guilty plea in each of these cases to find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And take each of these because Mr. Kelly, you're incorrect. And so there's a kind of a way where both goals can be reached here. In the case dealing with 23 CR 1860, this is the sordid tale where you approached the victim with a firearm, grabbed him by the front of the shirt, put the gun up to his head. Then he grabbed your arm, began to wrestle with you to save his life. Then y'all fell on the table. 3 gunshots came forth, and this man says the next moments he didn't know if he was dead or not, or shot or not. He opens his eyes, and 3 other individuals of the church had come to the rescue and pinned you at the table. And he had to step back and determine whether he had been shot or not. Do you know what it's like to put a gun to someone's head and then fire?
No,
Well, you were right there. You think they get over that pretty easily?
I think not.
It's horrifying their whole life. It'll be the nightmare they live with. The gift that keeps on giving thanks to you. The terror that keeps on giving. How many nights does he wake up in cold sweats? Because he was powerless, really. You had the control, which you're not supposed to have. That's for our Creator, not you. You're not the supreme being. You don't decide who lives and dies, but you decided to step in and make those choices. And I know this is a trauma he lives with his whole life.
No.
You were hereby sentenced to confinement in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice to serve a term of 10 years in that case. And it shall reflect, the judgment shall reflect that a deadly weapon, namely firearm, was used in the commission of that offense. In 24 CR 774, this is where I believe your wife was the victim here in this case, an aggravated assault with the use of a deadly weapon, namely a firearm. There is sufficient evidence supporting your guilty plea to find you guilty in that case. However, I'm going to defer any finding of guilt and place you on deferred or unadjudicated probation for 10 years. You will be released on parole sometime before 10 years, in all likelihood. you will then pick up with supervision with the probation office. At that time, you are released. Terms and conditions of probation, which hopefully will try to help deal with some of uh, some of these issues that have come up here that probably will not be addressed effectively in prison. But these run concurrently based upon the agreement. So you'll be on a probation while you're in prison. When you release, there will be a term of probation, which still needs to be satisfied, probably, unless you do the whole 10 years, which is not likely. And there will be these terms and conditions of probation, which hopefully will help you transition from confinement to the free world in a peaceful way without putting guns to people's heads. You understand what I've done here today, sir?
I didn't,
It's a hybrid kind of a think parole term after release has some effect, but not as intensive as probation in Jefferson County would. When you're released, they can get you back into some programs and supervision, which will hopefully keep you in the free world and not subject others to what's our behavior, which, as I say, you can apologize all day long, but how do you take back putting a gun to somebody's head and then the gun going off 3 times as they're wrestling over the gun and wrestling for their life? How do you take that back from somebody's memory? You don't. It's punished. It's hard they live with. And there's a price to pay when you're responsible for it. You understand? Deal with this responsibly.
Sure.
Okay. Anything else? That is all. That is all.